As a criminal defense lawyer, do you understand, the changes that are occurring in real time on what it takes to get a call from a potential criminal defense client? Are you aware of what's going on? If you're not and you want to know more, tune in and find out.
You are listening to the Prosperous Law Podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosperous Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. One of the things I want to talk about, and I talked about this a little bit in the last podcast, is that the search impact of artificial intelligence, and I want to go through that a little bit more and in more detail here today. And recently we've had some guests on the podcast, which are artificial intelligence leaders in the field nationally, people that understand it and understand different roles and how it can help criminal defense lawyers. And one of the things that we're doing is that Prosperous Law, which is exclusively for criminal defense law firm owners, is we're even challenging some of these experts because, they weren't, when we contacted them to speak at our seminars, when we contacted them to be on the podcast, when we contacted them to teach our members, they were not focused on criminal defense. I don't know of any of them. Now, some of them that we've reached out to said that, they just work exclusively with personal injury. Others are open to the idea and see the opportunity for themselves to be able to expand their reach and help criminal defense lawyers. And some of that is also because they want to be, in the growth of criminal defense lawyers, and is Prosperous Law. And what I'm doing and what we're doing is we're really leading the industry for criminal defense lawyers. Now, there are other good people out there that are helping criminal defense lawyers, but that's not mostly what you find. It's not mostly what you see. And I know a couple of people that have criminal defense law firms and they do things to help lawyers. And there are a couple, what I consider excellent coaching companies, but there's not a ton of it. It's not like you see for personal injury and even for estate planning and things like that. And so one of the things that I'm committed to doing, and one of the things that we're actively working on, is we're taking these people who are experts in the field, who are leaders nationally in using artificial intelligence to help lawyers improve their practices, but also to get clients in the door, sign clients, have clients retain us as criminal defense lawyers. We're challenging them, and they're accepting the challenge to help develop systems and to focus part of their expertise and knowledge, not just on how to get a car wreck case, not just how to, focus on, a traumatic brain injury case and things like that, but to help us criminal defense lawyers. Because I believe, and I think it's just true, that criminal defense lawyers have not been innovative. We're a little bit of a different breed. We're kind of like cowboys and cowgirls. We're out there by ourselves. We're resilient. We're tough. A lot of us are isolated, and then we're just self-reliant. And those are good, the good characteristics. And if you're a criminal defense lawyer and you've ever been in court and you felt the pressure from everybody coming at you, from the police, from the presiding judge, to the people watching the case, if it's a victim case, the so-called victim and the victim's family and all that entourage, and then the general public, you have to be tough to do that. You have to be tough to stand up to that and not just go hide in a corner somewhere. When you're representing the most reviled person in the community, the public enemy number one, you cannot be somebody who shies away from that. You have to be tough. You have to be self-reliant, and you have to have the grit and determination to do the right thing and to do what you're supposed to do, and what lawyers are supposed to do for all of us, which is stand up against the government, stand up against the mob, stand up against the public, and defend that person. And so many times what you find is that then the lawyer who knew the defense was right, and so somebody is acquitted, somebody is exonerated. You still have lots of times you still have that that attack, that idea that you just use some legal trick to get them off the case, to get them out of the charge. But that's just who we are. Now it also kind of works against us because if we're not collaborative, if we've never trusted anybody to have an answer for us, then that limits our curiosity and keeps us in a no growth mode, or in an isolation mode. So I think it's very important that we have a place, we have a community, we have a group where we can share ideas. And that's, the mastermind concept is that it's just smart people, experienced people sharing ideas, which makes us all smarter and stronger and more informed. So if you look at, and I started practicing law in the late 80s, and then opened my law firm, or my law office, at the end of 1993. And so a lot of the information I'm getting at that time was from the past, where lawyers were talking about this is the way it worked. And I would say that, prior to 1997, a fairly specific date, the way that lawyers functioned is, and I call it the old way. And this was probably there. I did read something where, Abraham Lincoln advertised his legal services. And back in those times, apparently, and I haven't really looked into this, lawyers did advertise their services. But then what happened is, the bar associations kind of frowned upon it. So there was this whole time, say from post-Lincoln to 1977, where lawyers were seen as this distinguished professional group. That's the way they saw themselves. That's the way their organizations wanted to project themselves. So it was not something where they were going to advertise. And I think in a lot of ways, a lot of us would probably gladly go back to that, because then it's 100% referral-based business. And the idea is that if you were a good lawyer, you're a good criminal defense lawyer. In other words, you were honest, you were diligent, you knew what you were doing, you could try a case, you could negotiate a case, you could move a jury to see it your way. Then if we could go back to that, I probably would willingly do that. So no advertising. But the Supreme Court, in that, I think it was an Arizona case, they changed that, because in 1977, I think it was, they ruled that the lawyers who brought the case had the right to free speech, and they had the right to free speech, commercial speech, and that they couldn't be silenced. They couldn't be restricted out of exercising the right to free speech. And so now all of a sudden, lawyers can advertise. So what happens then? In the old way, prior to 1977, if you were a lawyer, you went to law school, you got your law license, and then basically you opened an office, you knew some people, and you have an office, and as you grow over time, and when somebody calls and wants your help, somebody answers the phone, and you make an appointment, and that's all there is to it. Now, are you going to scale up and become some mega firm with that kind of, system? No, you're not. But you're going to probably do okay, because you're going to have a practice that's built on your reputation, it's built over time. And so one decade after another is going to build on itself. Your fees are going to go up, your clients are going to get better, and you're going to just have a long, productive, healthy life. So what would you do if you wanted to increase your business? You join some clubs, you're a member of a church, you got some hobbies, and you expand your reach. And that's it. So that's the way it was. It worked fine. So then what happens is, with the case, in 1977, I'll have what we call the modern way from 1977 to 1985. You start to get the television advertising. Now, it didn't happen overnight. Even though the Supreme Court opinion came out, things don't change overnight. There were still restrictions in different states about advertising, so it took a while, for those things to break loose. But you had the beginning of it, and I remember, when I got out of law school, I finished law school in '85, really in December of '84. So I was in that class, and I didn't start practicing immediately. But friends of mine everybody in my class, they were practicing law. I wasn't practicing law. I was doing something else. I moved to New York City and wanted to spend some time out of the law before I came back to get started with it. So then friends of mine, they were in that TV time. They were personal injury lawyers. It was mid-'80s, and they were on TV. And that was really the glory years of it. I know specific lawyers that were advertising on television back then. One lawyer friend of mine said that when he started advertising on television, and this is in rural North Carolina, they had to shut the ads off because they were getting so many. I think they signed I can't remember the number, something ridiculous, 100 clients in a month or two from being on television. I think that John Morgan of Morgan read where he said back then, when they would run their television ads, it was just like, say, he was using a football analogy where it's like we're running the ball, handing the ball off to the tailback and running up the middle and getting 15 yards every time we do it. It was just amazing of how many people called, how many injury cases came in from that television advertising. So it was a crazy time. But I also remember that, like, friends of mine that advertised on television, when they went to court, they were mistreated. The judges hated them. All the lawyers hated them. Everybody thought they were, sleazy. And there was a big backlash for people that were doing that. Now, the successful ones they didn't really care, because it was working, and they were glad that no one else was doing it. But you have to have a strong personality to do that. And so then what happened? So you got, you got the phone book, you got TV. It's really the personal injury lawyers that are really working television. And then what happens to all of that? Google, it launches in 1998. In the year 2000, they partnered with Yahoo, and now they're getting 100 million searches a day. From 2002 to 2004, Google becomes dominant. From 2004 to now, it's like we're now worldwide, Google has 8.5 billion searches a day. And so the landscape from the 1990s to now, really 2020, say 2026, but say at least, basically now it's Google. Now, TV still works. Billboards still work for some people. But if you were a lawyer, in the last 30 years, last 20 years, if you didn't play with Google's rules, if you didn't get the SEO that you needed, if you didn't delve into some pay-per-click and LSA and some pay to play and pay, you were missing out. But we all learned, that was the model. That's what you have to do. If you want to play, these are the rules. So we all go hire everybody to optimize our websites. We make sure then when Google comes out with a Google Map pin, that we got to go scramble and get verified and get our Google pin. And so those are the rules. And so, we succeed. The things that we did, it works. And there you have it. Okay, fantastic. But then what happens? Well, just like, 50 years of change happens every 5 years now, it's changing. And it's on top of us, okay? And so you may not want to do this, but you don't really have a choice. If you're going to, and a lot of people, that I know, that I talk to, they're relying on their vendors to be on top of this. And some people who are handling, your so-called marketing, whether and most of these people are outside agencies, you hope that they know what they're doing. You hope they're on the cutting edge of this. But I do think you have to know enough about it that you can have a conversation with them to make sure that you're going to still be in the game and you're not going to get eliminated. There is some idea and some word out there that, because there are some SEO companies that, because they did it a certain way for a long time, say 10, 20 years, it was keywords, and it hasn't changed overnight yet. But this whole idea that, the keyword search, while still relevant, it could basically not just go away because the way the system, everything is going through a Google platform. So that's not going to evaporate. An AI search many times is going into the Google platform in terms of location, because location is key to search. If somebody's in California and they're searching for a criminal defense lawyer, they're searching for a DUI lawyer, or they want to know, hire somebody for an arraignment on a federal case, and they're in California and they're searching, and you get the results in Texas and Indiana, that doesn't help. So the Google ecosystem, the Google platform, the Google location maps, and all of the things that Google has created in terms of geography and where you're located, it's still riding in that system because there's no other way to do it. Otherwise, I could be in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, looking for a DUI lawyer, and it gives me somebody in LA. That won't work. Google had fixed this, years ago to make sure that its users searching on Google were going to the right place to get the right answers. So that part probably doesn't change, and probably nobody creates that infrastructure because it's already created. I don't know all of that, but that's the general idea that Google's still going to be relevant. But if you look at AI, in this one article I was reading was saying, AI was a kind of a niche experimental tool in the early 2024. So then it becomes its mainstream behavior by 2026. As I'm recording this right now, this is 2026. It's mainstream behavior in 2026. So 2 years, okay, it's this niche tool. It's this kind of oddball thing that people are looking at. And if you remember, people would talk about how it was wrong, and it's still wrong, I think, 10% of the time, but it's unreliable. But as the technology shifts and it's improved and it keeps learning, then now it's mainstream behavior. So now what do you have? In terms of user adoption for AI, in the U.S. daily, AI search users more than doubled in just 6 months during 2025. So AI search users, people using AI search, more than doubled in 2025. And so it rose from 14% to nearly 30% of adults in 2025. So, and that's the users. That doesn't mean that AI is taking over the market. That means the people that were using it, however small a group that was, that doubled. So then market volume, total monthly AI assistant sessions reached 45 billion sessions globally by early 2026. And that's representing approximately 56% of traditional search engine volume. So this is happening. And if you go on Google and you get in the Gemini part, you're in the AI. And so now you're using AI whether you even want to or not. And Google's feeding that to you in the front end. So really, if you want to do a traditional search, you have to scroll through that to get past it. So the other thing that you have to understand and watch out for is this thing called zero-click search. Zero-click search is a major trend. It's been on the rise. And what that means is that it doesn't go to your website. So somebody goes and does a search. They're looking for answers. And our whole systems are built up to get people on our website. So now with an AI search, a zero-click search, the idea is that the person will get the answer without going to your website. AI will give the information, and it may be good information, it may be terrible information. And that's one of the things that's happened, at least here temporarily, is, the things that weren't really relevant before, at least they were big at first, but then people moved away from them, which were things like Yelp, Avvo, directories, all these legal directories, didn't seem that important, and it become less and less useful being in a directory. All of a sudden with AI, that it becomes extremely important again, because AI has to have something that it draws from, and those are called the citations. Now, are people searching for the best criminal defense lawyers or the best DUI lawyer in your market? Are they going back and looking at the citations or not? Probably not. So what you have to be aware of is, if you're not in this long language model search game where it's bringing them to your information, AI can give them an answer and they never see your website. They never go to your website. They get the answer, they get the phone number, they get the click button or whatever they need without ever seeing your website. Now, I don't know about you, but I've spent a ton of time and money on my website. It's enhanced with, story brand marketing techniques. It's enhanced with it being focused on the client, so the client sees themselves in it. It's enhanced with all of our marketing messages and who we are and our brand. It's got a significant number of video content on it. And so that part is good, because I'm doing things now that I could talk about at another time to get people on those landing pages. But if people are looking for a lawyer and it's a zero-click search and they never go to my website, then that's a concern. And so you have to be aware of this. There are certain things that you can do to make sure that you're staying relevant in an AI search. But we don't know exactly how quickly this is going to be here, but it's on top of us now. A year or 2 years from now, this could be a completely different world. So just like it changed in 1977, just like it changed in about 2000 when Google came on board, it's happening again. And so whether you're interested in becoming, a marketing expert or not, you need at least some basic knowledge in order to make sure that you ride through this and hopefully have enough control over what you're doing to make sure that you benefit from it. So I hope that's helpful. I'll see you next time.
If you want to know more, go to prosperatlaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.